In our house, there were always two children, but only one was loved. And it was definitely not me. When I was little, I didn't understand why my mom always looked at me with such coldness. I was 5 when my brother was born. From that day on, my life was split into before and after. I still remember the first night they brought him home from the hospital. Mom was glowing, holding him in her arms, while Dad carried in a huge bouquet of flowers. I ran closer, reaching out my hands. "Mom, can I hold him?" Mom pushed me back with her elbow. "Don't touch. You'll drop him. You're still too little and clumsy." Dad chuckled. "Go play in the corner. You don't belong here." I sat down on the hallway floor, watching them circle around the crib, whispering and smiling. Nobody even noticed my tears. From that day, I became a shadow in my own home. All the attention was his. If I twirled in my old hand-me-down dress, hoping Mom would notice me, she didn't even lift her eyes. "Move out of the way." But when my brother got his first little suit, Mom would coo for hours. "Look at him. Such a handsome boy. Our little prince." I ate yesterday's leftover soup while he got meat and sweets. I once overheard Mom telling the neighbor, "For my daughter, the old stuff will do. What matters is the boy is well-fed, well-dressed, well taken care of." One day, I brought home a drawing from school. I had worked so hard on it, a house, the sun, Mom, and Dad. I walked up to her and held it out. "Look, Mom, it's us." She didn't even glance. "Don't dirty my hands. Stop wasting time on your silly doodles." That same evening, my brother scribbled a couple of lines with a crayon, and Mom applauded like he had painted the Mona Lisa. "See? He's got talent. He's going to be an artist one day." I was the best student in my class, but my diplomas and awards ended up shoved into drawers, unnoticed. I'll never forget the day I brought home a prize for a school essay. My hands were trembling with hope. Maybe this time she'd smile at me with pride. I held out the certificate. She glanced at it and said, "So what? Your brother took his first steps today. That's way more important than your little papers." Dad laughed. "She'll always be a nobody. Thank God we have a son." But the worst night was when I got really sick. I had a fever, shivering on the couch. I whispered, "Mom, water, please." She walked over, looked down at me, and hissed, "Quit faking it. You always pull this crap to steal attention." I reached my hand toward her, but she grabbed my hair and yanked me up. "Get up. If you want water, get it yourself. I'm not your servant." I stumbled, knocking a glass off the table. It shattered on the floor, and I fell next to it. Mom didn't even look back. She walked into the kitchen to give my brother ice cream. Lying on the cold floor, staring at the ceiling, I thought, why was I even born? When my brother turned 7 and I was 12, the difference between us became painfully obvious. The house had unspoken rules, everything for him, nothing for me. The moment I came home from school, exhausted and hungry, I'd hear Mom's voice from the kitchen. "Shoes off, get in here and wash the dishes." Meanwhile, my brother sat in front of the TV with chips and soda. I whispered, "Why doesn't he help?" Mom would whirl around, eyes blazing. "Because he's a boy. He has a future ahead of him. You need to learn how to be a homemaker. That's your role." I bit my lips so hard not to cry. Dad backed her up. "Boys don't do women's chores. You do it. He needs to focus on important things." And his important things were crashing toy cars, ripping my books, and laughing when I cried trying to save them. One afternoon, I got an A+ on a tough essay. My teacher praised me in front of the whole class. I skipped home, clutching the notebook to my chest. "Mom, Dad, look, I got an A+. My teacher said I wrote the best one." Mom didn't even glance up from her pot. "So what? Do you think anyone cares?" Dad sneered. "Those scribbles are worthless. You'd be better off learning to cook." That same night, my brother brought home a certificate for participating in sports day. He had finished dead last, but Mom beamed like he'd won the Olympics. "That's my boy. A real athlete." I stood in the corner, clutching my notebook, burning inside. Dinner was always torture. Whenever I tried to speak, Mom cut me off. "Shut up. Don't act smart." But when my brother told silly stories, everyone laughed. Once I asked timidly, "Mom, can I join the art club at school? It's free and—" Her face was stone. "We don't have money for your nonsense." My brother piped up loudly, "Mom, can I get a new bike? Sam has one and I don't." And Mom's face melted into a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. This weekend, Daddy and I will get you one." I looked down at my plate, a lump in my throat. At night, I often cried into my pillow, whispering to myself, maybe I really am wrong. Maybe if I were prettier, or quieter, or smarter, Mom would love me like she loves him. But every morning, it started all over again. One day, Mom told me straight out, You have to understand, you have a different destiny. You're a girl. You'll get married and leave. But your brother, he'll stay. He's our purpose in life. I whispered back. And me? I have a life too. She slapped me so hard my ears rang. Don't forget, you're nothing. Without us, you're nobody. I looked at my brother and thought, why him? He could smash a vase, and Mom laughed. It's fine, he's just a kid. But if I spilled a drop of water? You clumsy idiot. You ruin everything. I lived like a servant in a house where I didn't belong. And yet, I still hoped. I still dreamed that one day, Mom would look at me and say, I'm proud of you. That day never came. I was 16. My life felt like a closed circle: school, home, chores, humiliation. But that was the year I realized something important. If I didn't escape now, I would never escape at all. At night, while my brother slept in his own room and my parents watched TV, I studied under the weak glow of a desk lamp. Sometimes I fell asleep right on my books. Teachers told me I had great potential, and I believed them, even when at home I heard something very different. Still sitting with those books, my mother sneered. What's the point? You'll never get into a university. We don't have money for that nonsense. Go ahead, keep studying, my father mocked. You'll get married anyway. Let's see how those books help you then. My brother laughed the loudest. Who would ever want you? I clenched my teeth in silence. Arguing was pointless. A few months later, fate gave me a chance. The school announced a program for talented students. The top graduate would win a full scholarship to one of the best universities in the country. I swore to myself, I will win. Night after night, I wrote essays, solved tests, devoured books our house had never owned. I carried home stacks of textbooks from the library. The librarian once looked at me thoughtfully and said, You're not like other kids. It's like you're trying to save yourself in these books. And I smiled. Because that's exactly what I'm doing. When the day came to announce the winner, I shook like I had a fever. The principal read out the name slowly. The scholarship goes to Emily Johnson. For a second, the world froze. Then applause thundered around me. I stood there, clutching the letter with trembling hands, thinking, I'm saved. But home was hell. I placed the letter on the table carefully and said, Mom, Dad, I got in. On a full scholarship. You don't have to pay for anything. I expected pride. Maybe even joy. Instead, my mother's eyes turned cold. So what? You think we'll just let you move to another city? My father slammed his fist on the table. You're needed here. This is your family. Who's going to help your mother? My brother smirked. Go ahead and leave. You're useless anyway. The ground disappeared beneath me. But for the first time, I didn't cry. I stood straight and said firmly, I'm leaving. This isn't up for discussion. Mother jumped up, her face twisted in rage. You ungrateful brat. We raised you, fed you, and this is how you repay us. You didn't raise me, I whispered. You broke me. But I survived. Father lifted his hand to hit me, but I stepped back, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I packed my old backpack, a few books, a notebook, a change of clothes. My mother screamed, my brother laughed, my father smashed his fists against the table. But I walked out the door. And I never went back. I'll never forget the day I stepped onto the university campus. My chest trembled with both terror and joy. Standing in the courtyard surrounded by tall brick buildings, I whispered, I did this. Not them. Me. For the first time in my life, I was free. At first, university felt like a dream. Nobody insulted me, nobody shouted orders, nobody told me I was worthless. My dorm mates laughed about movies, invited me to dinner at the cafeteria, treated me like I belonged. I smiled and tried to act normal. But inside, I still heard my mother's voice, You're nothing. Without us, you'll fail. I buried myself in studies. Good grades became my shield. Professors praised me, classmates clapped after my presentations. And yet, every success whispered in my head. If Mom saw this, she'd laugh and say I was full of myself. 2 months passed. One evening, my phone rang. An unknown number. I picked up. You think you're better than us? My mother's voice hissed. Your grades mean nothing. The university will soon see you for the empty shell you are. I froze. I had never told them where I was studying. How do you know where I am? I whispered. Her laugh was sharp, cruel. We'll always know. You can run to the ends of the earth, but we'll remind you who you are, our shame, our mistake. The next day, a letter arrived at the dorm. Inside was a photo of my campus. At the bottom, in my mother's handwriting, we're close. My hands shook so badly the paper nearly tore. Panic screamed inside me. It's happening again. I'll never be free. Desperate, I called my father. Maybe he would finally defend me. Dad, they're following me. I can't live like this. I sobbed into the phone. His voice was flat, tired. You chose to leave. Now you deal with it. We're not wasting more time on an ungrateful girl. Those words cut deeper than any slap. I sat in the dark for hours, until finally I walked to the dean's office. Trembling, I told him everything. He listened, then said quietly, "We can't ignore this. The campus is no place for harassment. We'll file an official no trespass order. But you should think about legal protection outside the university as well." A week later, I was at the police station, giving a statement. "They've come here repeatedly," I explained. "They insult me in front of professors and students. They threaten me. I'm afraid they won't stop." The officer scribbled notes, then looked up. "You can apply for a restraining order. But be prepared, they'll try to twist everything against you." And they did. At the hearing, my mother appeared in a neat suit with an attorney at her side. Her face was a mask of righteousness. "Your Honor," she said smoothly, "I only wanted to help my daughter. She ran away, fell in with bad influences. We just want to guide her back to the right path." My father nodded silently at every word. I stood up, my whole body shaking, but my voice was firm. "They're lying. They come to my university to humiliate me. They don't care about me, they want control. I'm on a scholarship, I've built a life here. I have professors and classmates who've witnessed their abuse." From the back, one of my classmates stood. "I was there," she called out. Her mother screamed at her in front of everyone. It was awful. Others spoke too. Piece by piece, the truth came out. Finally, the judge ruled. From this moment, a restraining order is in effect. You are prohibited from approaching your daughter closer than 200 yards, including on university grounds. Violation will result in criminal charges. My mother's face turned pale. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. On her way out, she leaned close and whispered through clenched teeth, "You betrayed your family. This isn't over." But outside, when I breathed in the cool air, it felt lighter than it ever had before. For the first time in my life, freedom didn't feel like a dream. It felt real. Still, deep down, I knew my mother wasn't finished. After the trial, life suddenly felt lighter. On campus, no one threatened me anymore. I could study and breathe freely. But very soon I realized my mother and father would not stop so easily. First came the calls. At night, from unknown numbers. I picked up the phone and heard only breathing or a whisper. "You'll regret this." Sometimes it was laughter. Sometimes crude insults. I stopped answering, but the phone buzzed every 20 minutes. I turned the sound off and still lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Then the sabotage began. My bicycle, which I kept near the campus, had both tires slashed. One morning, a vile red spray-painted message appeared on my dorm room door. "Liar. Thief. Bitch." I knew who had done it, but had no proof. "They're trying to break you," my roommate Sarah said. "But you have to show them you're stronger." I nodded, though inside I was trembling. A week later, someone started pounding on my ground floor window in the middle of the night. The knocking was long, insistent, like someone wanted to smash through the glass. I rushed over, pulled back the curtains, and saw my mother. Her eyes were wild, her lips twisted in a cruel smile. She whispered through the glass, "You're my daughter, and you'll never escape me." I stumbled back, my heart racing so violently I thought I might faint. The next morning, I went to the police again. The officer gave me a weary look. "You need to document everything. Photos, videos, witnesses. Install cameras. We need evidence, or they'll keep wriggling out of it." So I did. I bought several cameras, installed one at the window, another in the dorm hallway, and one more at the entrance. And soon, the recordings started coming in. On the videos, my mother was seen leaving filthy bags by my door. Inside was something disgusting. Once it was raw meat, left to rot and spread its stench through the hall. Another time, old rags soaked in something sticky. My father walked beside her, looking around like a guard. Sometimes they simply stood at my door, whispering, "She has to come back. She owes us." I showed the recordings to the dean, and he just shook his head. "These people are sick. But now we have enough to call the police again." And I did. When the officers arrived and caught my mother red-handed with a bag in her hand right outside my door, she began screaming, "This is my house. My daughter. I have rights." They led her away in handcuffs. My father walked silently beside her, eyes down. That evening I sat on my bed, shaking from exhaustion and fear, when Sarah brought me a cup of hot tea. "You'll win," she said softly. "Just keep living. Keep building your life." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a family, not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen. The trial dragged on for months. My mother and father hired lawyers, filed complaints, demanded I be declared unstable, tried to argue my recordings were illegal. Every step was full of lies and manipulation. I came to court with folders of documents, flash drives full of videos. They brought absurd evidence, photos of my bicycle, claiming I slashed my own tires to frame them. Your Honor, my mother spat, her voice trembling with rage. This girl has lied her entire life. She invents, she stages everything. I looked at her and realized there was nothing human left in those eyes. But through every hearing, one person was always by my side. His name was Michael. He was a law intern with Sarah's firm, and he often helped me prepare documents, organize evidence, explain legal terms. You need to remember, he said before one hearing, the truth is on your side. They'll try to confuse you, provoke you. But you cannot let them see weakness. His voice was calm, steady. Sometimes it felt like he was the only person in the world who truly believed in me. At one hearing, my mother exploded right in court. She's just an ungrateful brat, she screamed, slamming her hand on the table. We raped her, set her, clothed her, and she puts us in prison. The judge banged his gavel. One more outburst, and I'll be removed. I sat frozen, my hands trembling. Then I felt a light touch. Michael placed his hand gently over mine. I looked up and met his steady eyes. In that moment, I could endure it. After the session, as we walked down the long courthouse hallway, my parents trailing behind, muttering curses, Michael said quietly, "You know, I think you're not just going to win this case. You're going to survive. You'll build a life where they'll have no place." I smiled for the first time in days. "You really think that's possible?" I asked. He nodded. "More than possible." And I realized something. For the first time since childhood, there was a man next to me who didn't shout, didn't humiliate, didn't demand submission. He just stood beside me and supported me. It was unfamiliar, but unbelievably important. The trial had been dragging on for 6 months. The final hearing was supposed to put an end to everything. The courtroom was silent. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. My parents' lawyer stood up, trying once again to paint me as a manipulator. "Your Honor, she used surveillance cameras without my client's consent. She violated their right to privacy." I stood calmly. "Your Honor," I said, inserting the flash drive into the screen. "Here you will see how my clients break windows, leave trash at my door, write insults. Their faces. Their voices. This is not fiction." The screen lit up and the hall filled with voices. "You're nothing, we'll destroy you," my mother screamed. "You have no right to this place," my father added. The judge frowned deeply. "That's enough." My mother jumped up. "She betrayed us. She destroyed the family. It's all her fault." Silence in the courtroom. The judge barked and the guards stepped forward. I stood unmoving, hardly believing it was real. But the judge's voice was clear. "The court finds the defendants guilty of harassment, threats, and property damage. They are to pay full compensation." My mother let out a sound like a howl. My father went pale. They exchanged a look, pure terror in their eyes. And suddenly, it felt as though a massive weight had lifted from my chest. Michael leaned toward me and whispered, "It's over." When we walked out of the courthouse, my mother lunged at me at the doors. "You think you've won? Without us, you're nothing. Nobody." I looked her in the eye and, for the first time, smiled. "You're right about one thing. Without you, I am nobody, and that is my freedom." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I could still hear their curses, their threats. But for the first time in my life, they didn't hurt me. I stepped outside, breathed in the cold air, and felt, for the first time in 20 years, that I was truly alive. Michael caught up with me, holding out a paper cup of coffee. "Here," he said. "The taste of victory is always a little bitter, but trust me, it's worth it." I laughed. For the first time freely. And I knew, somehow, I had made it out of the darkness. The apartment I moved into was small but full of light. Tall windows let in the morning sun, and for the first time in many years I woke up not to shouting and noise, but to the sound of birds singing outside. I stood in the middle of the room among the boxes and couldn't believe this was now my space. Mine. No one yelling, no one demanding, no one ordering. "Well, hostess, how does it feel?" Michael asked, carrying in another box and setting it against the wall. I smiled and answered softly, as if afraid to scare away this fragile reality. "Honestly, it feels like I'm living for the first time." He laughed, wiping his forehead. "Then tonight, we celebrate. I can't cook, but ordering pizza? That's my superpower." I laughed with him. It was the first real laugh I'd had in a long time. Work was unusual, too. A big office, glass walls, colleagues who greeted me with smiles. I constantly caught myself waiting for something bad to happen. Like at any moment someone would criticize me or humiliate me. "Hey, are you okay?" asked Sarah, my new coworker, noticing how I nervously squeezed my pen. Yes, it's just, I'm used to people yelling at me for even the smallest mistake, I admitted. Sarah frowned, then smiled warmly. That doesn't happen here. We all make mistakes sometimes. It's part of work, not a punishment. I nodded, but inside it took me a long time to adjust to this new normal. Michael started stopping by more often after work. Sometimes with bags of food, sometimes just to talk. One evening, he handed me a small pot with a flower. Every new home should start with life, he said. I took the pot in my hands, and tears filled my eyes. Thank you, was all I could whisper. We sat on the floor among the boxes, eating pizza and laughing at something silly. He told me stories from his student days, and I shared how strange it felt to wake up in silence now. Have you ever thought that happiness could be simple? He suddenly asked. I looked at him and shook my head. For me, it always felt distant, almost unreachable. He took my hand and gently squeezed it. Then let me prove to you that it's possible. I didn't answer. Inside, fear and hope wrestled. I didn't know if I could fully trust anyone again, but for the first time in years, I wanted to try. At first, everything was careful. I noticed that every gesture of his I analyzed for hidden meaning. When he opened a door for me or offered to carry a bag, I tensed, because in my past, any help always turned into reproach. But Michael never used it as control. He did it naturally, without expecting anything in return. Why do you keep looking at me like I'm about to ask you for a report? He teased once, when we were sitting in a cafe. Embarrassed, I hid my eyes in my coffee cup and whispered. I'm just not used to people doing something without expecting a price. He grew serious. Listen to me. If I help you, it's because I want to, not because I'll demand something later. You deserve to be treated normally. I stayed silent, but something shifted inside me. Evenings, he often stayed over. Sometimes we watched movies, sometimes we just talked. And every time I realized, he never judged me. Not once. Even when I shared the darkest memories of a home where there was never a place for me, never a kind word. They always said I was a mistake, I confessed one night, surprising even myself. You know what I think? He leaned closer. The mistake was theirs. That they couldn't see how strong you are. That they couldn't be proud of you. My throat tightened, and to keep from crying, I laughed. You're idealizing me. No, he shook his head. I just see what they didn't. The next day, I found a small box on my desk. Inside was a silver bracelet, thin and delicate. The note said, so you'll always remember, you're not alone. I held it for a long time, not believing that someone could give something not for control, but for support. Sometimes, sitting late in the kitchen, he told me about his family, how his mom always supported him, even when he failed exams, how his dad taught him to fix his bike. I listened, and a quiet longing grew in me. Not angry envy, but a gentle ache for something I'd never had. You're smiling, but your eyes look sad, he said once. I'm just thinking, what it must be like to have parents who love you simply because you exist. He sighed softly, touching my hand. Do you want me to introduce you to my mom? She'd hug you the second she saw you. I panicked, shaking my head. No, I'm not ready. He smiled gently. All right. Whenever you're ready. I didn't know then that he would be right. 2 months passed. I never thought I'd see them again. After I left home, I tried not even to say the words Mom and Dad. But one day, as Michael and I returned from the store, I saw them standing at my door. My mother with her arms crossed, my father pacing and smoking. My heart dropped, the bags nearly slipping from my hands. It's them, I whispered. Michael immediately noticed my pale face. Do you want me to talk to them? But I didn't have time to answer. My mother stepped forward. Well, look who it is, our little princess, her voice dripped venom. Think having your own place makes you better than us? I pressed my lips together, holding back tears. I don't want to talk. Leave. My father sneered. How ungrateful. We raised you, and you show no thanks. We came for what's ours. Michael stepped forward, setting the bags down. His voice was calm but firm. What's yours? You really think you have any right to her life? My mother glared at him. And who are you? Some boy who decided to shelter trash. The words cut deep, but Michael didn't flinch. She's not trash. She's stronger, smarter, and better than you ever were. And if you ever call her that again, I swear, I won't let you even get near her. My mother shrieked. She owes us. Everything she has because of us. I broke. You? You gave me nothing but tears and humiliation. You stole my childhood, you broke me, and I'm still picking up the pieces. For a second, they went silent, stunned by my shout. Then my father stepped closer. Watch your mouth, girl. We can take what's ours by force if we need to. And in that moment, Michael stepped between us, his shoulders shielding me. Try it. But know this, I'll call the police, and you'll finally have to answer for everything you've done. They exchanged a look. Rage flickered in my mother's eyes, but her voice already wavered. "You think she'll choose you over her family?" she hissed. I stepped forward and took Michael's arm. I already did. Something broke inside me. But not from pain. From freedom. Michael picked up the bags, wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and whispered, "Let's go home. They can't hurt you anymore." Behind us, my mother's curses and my father's angry shouts echoed. But for the first time, I didn't care. For the first time, there was someone who stood between me and my demons. 2 days later, when Michael and I got out of the car, I immediately saw them standing in front of my building. My mother stood with her arms crossed, while my father paced back and forth, as if the cigarettes he kept smoking weren't enough to calm his nerves. "What are they doing here?" I whispered. Michael looked at me and squeezed my hand. "Don't be afraid. I'm right here." I had barely taken a step when my mother rushed forward. "Well, finally. Do you think you can just ignore us?" Her eyes gleamed with rage. "I don't owe you a conversation," I exhaled. "Leave." My father's voice snapped through the air. "Don't you dare talk to us like that. You have money and you're obligated to help your brother. He needs to study, he got into college, and we don't have the means. Do you really want your brother ending up on the streets?" I froze. So that's why they were here. Not to see me. Not to ask how I was living. They wanted money. "You seriously think that after everything, I owe you help?" My voice trembled, but the words came out steady. "When I begged for support, you laughed at me, called me a burden. And now I'm supposed to fund your golden child." My mother screamed. "Don't you dare talk about your brother that way. He deserves it, and you've always been nothing. You're lucky someone pitied you and gave you a scholarship. But that money isn't yours. It belongs to the family." I felt Michael's hand tighten on my shoulder, stopping me before I snapped. His voice was cold and firm. "Listen carefully. She owes you nothing. Not a single cent. Your son is your responsibility, not hers." My father stepped toward him. "Shut your mouth. This is family business." "She is my family," Michael replied, staring directly into his eyes. "And I won't let you treat her like garbage." My mother's shriek cut the air. "She betrayed us. She has to pay for all the years we wasted raising her." I couldn't hold back. "Years? You spent those years destroying me, humiliating me, taking everything away, and then blaming me for it. I owe you nothing anymore." For a moment, silence fell. Then my father growled. "So you've chosen him? A stranger? Over us?" I stepped closer to Michael and wrapped my arm around his. "Yes, I chose him. Because he's the only one who sees me as a human being." Michael touched my cheek gently, as if to seal it. "Let's go home." My mother screamed something after us. My father waved his arms, but I didn't listen. Their voices stayed behind the door, like echoes of the past that no longer had power over me. A month had passed. We were sitting in the living room, the soft light of the lamp filling the room with a golden glow. It felt as if the whole world had frozen around us. Michael was telling me something funny about work, and I was laughing so hard my stomach hurt. It was that rare kind of laughter when not just your mouth laughs, but your soul too. And then suddenly, he went silent. I looked up at him and saw something new in his eyes, a calm determination. He stood up, took a few steps, and returned to me, with a small velvet box in his hands. "Michael," was all I managed to whisper, feeling the blood rush to my face. He lowered himself to one knee. "You know," he began softly, "I always thought family was something you were born into. But then I met you. And I realized family can be built. Found. Created. You are my home, my life, my only one." He opened the box. Inside was a ring thin, delicate, with a small diamond that caught the lamplight as though it held an entire universe within it. "Will you marry me?" he asked. I covered my mouth with my hand, tears immediately welling in my eyes. All the memories rushed in at once. The cold house where I was unwanted, my parents' constant reproaches, the shouting that haunted me in nightmares. And now here he was, the man who chose me. Who fought for me. Who proved that I deserved happiness. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger. His hands shook slightly, and that only made me cry harder. But these were tears of joy. I hugged him, burying my face into his shoulder. He held me tight, as if trying to shield me from the whole world. "I promise," he whispered, "you will never be alone again." We sat like that for a long time, just listening to each other's heartbeats. Then suddenly he smiled. "So, should we start planning? I think I'll need my own chair, you know, a big leather one. I'll sit there reading the newspaper like some old man." I laughed through my tears. "Yeah, and the kitchen will be my territory only. Don't you dare step in there without permission." "Deal," he chuckled. "But I'm still ordering the pizza." I looked at the ring and felt that it wasn't just jewelry. It was the end of my past and the beginning of a new life. 7 months passed. In that time, my parents tried to contact me several times. They showed up, they wrote, they even called from different numbers. They demanded, begged, screamed, but I never responded. Michael handled it all himself. As a lawyer, he knew how to set a boundary so firm that even the most persistent people couldn't break it. We bought a house, our very own. A house where there was no room for shouting and humiliation, only for light, laughter, and love. Every corner of that house breathed freedom. And there I was, sitting on the porch with a cup of tea in my hands, watching as the sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Michael came out, wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and whispered, "You know, sometimes I still can't believe I have you." I smiled and leaned against him. "And I can't believe I have you." Maybe my parents would show up again. Maybe they would try to interfere. But now I knew one thing. I had a protector. A man who had become my family. The love of my life. And for the very first time, I thought, yes, I am home.